But anyway, they opened up the show with the world title match between Seth Franklin Rollins and Drew McIntyre. And I like Drew McIntyre more now than we have lately, because it's getting some critical raves that he's becoming more of a snotty bastard with an attitude and isn't just going to be a nice guy, baby kiss and baby face. And he's a good worker, and he's big, and he's got some gravitas to him. It's just, we've talked about it, just old Drew McIntyre just hanging out, being a baby face and waving that sword around hadn't really been intriguing, but this is a little bit more interesting, right?
Oh, yes.
Or potentially wrong.
Well, I thought you were just saying that and going to move on. I didn't realize I was
I was going to take a breath. I'm doing most of the heavy lifting around here, so I had
it's your show. It's your show, but
yeah,
I agree. Look, Drew was dead as a babyface, and they made him the world champion. It was during the pandemic. There was no one there. When the fans came back, they didn't really react to him like a world champion. And a lot of that's not his fault. A lot of that's the way he's used. You could either keep going down the road of him being the babyface with the sword, or you can make him a heel and let his inner frustrations come out.
And I'm glad he's getting frustrated, but I'm getting a little frustrated too, because I still don't know what Seth Franklin Rollins' fucking gimmick is. I mean, he's a great athlete.
He's a kid. He's a kid who's just discovered Elton John.
I thought you were going to say LSD, but Elton John will work. Again, he's a great athlete. But now with this gimmick, and combine that with, he has, for better or worse, the most modern style matches in the WWE. And to me, that means they all kind of look the same, and it's hard for me to critique because they just all contain a lot of moves and a lot of dives and a lot of the modern stuff of people taking bumps where they shouldn't take bumps. Or doing nonsensical things because the people go, oh, wow, I didn't expect that. Like Rollins gives Drew a superplex off the top rope, and as soon as they land, he holds on and rolls over, and they stand up, and then Drew, the guy that just got superplex, picks Seth up and gives him a fucking suplex. How does that make any sense? But they love to do these things these days. Anyway, there was dives, there was fighting on the floor, there was an apron bump, there was some 2 counts. And then there was the point where Drew begged Seth to get up so that he could knock him down again. But when Seth got up, because Drew had waited to tell him to get up before he came over to hit him, he ran into a super kick and a pedigree and a curb stomp, 1, 2, 3. And I was like, what the fuck? Apparently, Drew has still not signed his new contract. And with what they've been doing, it seemed like this might be a time where you'd want to put the belt on this guy. But apparently, if he hadn't signed, they're not going to do that. But so, after all this, he got beat with a super kick, a pedigree, and a fucking curb stomp, 1, 2, 3.
I think for now, WWE's ride or die with Captain Fantastic. That's what I think.
Well, they sure made Drew the brown dirt cowboy then. Because he had to wipe a bunch of that brown dirt off his face after that. And then he was forgotten, because then here comes Damian Priest, and he runs down to cash in the briefcase. He's got the briefcase. He's telling the referee, but at that point, Sami Zayn in a hoodie ran down and grabbed the briefcase and stole it and ran off with it out into the crowd. So apparently, Sammy the Syrian doesn't have as much heat over there as he used to, because he went out in the crowd without getting knifed. But they flew him all the way across the fucking world to put on a hoodie and steal a briefcase.
Yeah, where else in Saudi Arabia can you grab someone's thing and run away and not get your hand cut off?
Especially if you're a fucking Syrian, apparently, or a Muslim, or whatever he is that they were mad at a while back. What did you think of this match? I mean, kind of like a longer Raw match with the guy that you thought might win. Maybe it would do some good, didn't win.
I think there's a couple different problems here. They're repairing Drew with a new gimmick, a new slant on himself. I mean, Damian Priest, just briefly, I'll just say, it kind of made him look weak. I didn't like that. Sammy runs off with his thing. Now we have him and Sammy. Have they not already been feuding? I don't even know. The problem is WWE has stuff that's super over right now. Guys that are super over, feuds, storylines. I hate to say that, but it's really more a feud. Like the Bloodline's not the Bloodline feud. It's the storyline of the Bloodline. But Rollins has a song that's over, and he's into it. When was the last time you cared about anything he was doing? Anyone he was working with, the program he had going on? When was the last time you really... I can't wait to see that match. I want to see what's going to happen when he finally gets his hands on this person, or they get their hands on him. It's been a long time. So they've spent a lot of time developing his personality. His personality's over. I almost feel like he wrestles an AEW style match sometimes, than a WWE match. But Rollins really isn't in the mix of like top things, unless they do something with him and Roman down the road before WrestleMania or something. But he's over. His music's over. I don't know how over he is because he's not really programmed in a top spot, even though he's the world champion.
Well, that's the thing, is that nobody views him as the world champion because all that oxygen is taken up with Roman talking about the length of his reign and that he smashed everybody and that he held the unified title for however long and blah, blah, blah. But then they're advertised for people who might just tune in every once in a while. Wait a minute. I thought they were saying the other guy's been the champion for 3 years. Now this guy says he's the champion. It's confusing to the casual person, and the dedicated fans look at Roman as the champion, not Seth Franklin Rollins, because they just made that belt up 6 months ago.
Right? We didn't get into him and Nakamura. I don't even remember who he was feuding with before then. I mean, him and Cody was the last time I guess we really cared, but that was more because it was Cody's first feud coming in.
Well, and that was also before the world title number 3 was instituted. So it's not really him. I don't even know what this is supposed to be, but it's not him. It's just him cackling and whining and singing and acting weirdly for, as we've said, it's not even a handsome Jimmy Valiant acting weird where you go, okay, I don't know what he's saying. I don't know what he's on, but it's obvious that that's him. This ain't him.
It's like every villain from the 60s Batman show had a baby. And he acts like they did on that show.
And, well, at least, then since Riddle is gone, why can't Seth be the next guy to get sound effects fly out of his ass instead of the unicorns or the elephants or the rabbits or whatever? He can jump over the top rope and bang, kapow, splat. All that flies out of his ass.
I hope that when Tony makes his next big mistake, it signs Riddle. I hope that they use something flying out of his ass just so we get that lawsuit. Be ridiculous. That's our intellectual property. Anything flying out of this man's ass is the intellectual property of TKO Group.
Except I don't think AEW will be able to afford the production to green screen the shit coming out of his ass or whatever. Well, let's move on. Because that was the first match, and by the time that was over with, what we just described, it was 35 minutes into the program.